There is a power in silence that most people underestimate. We're taught that in order to earn respect, you need to be loud, to explain yourself, to over-communicate, to justify every move. But real power doesn't chase validation. Real power doesn't rush to be understood. And real confidence isn't measured by how much you speak. It's revealed in what you choose not to say. The moment you stop explaining yourself to be accepted is the moment you shift the dynamic. Most people talk too much because they're uncomfortable with space. They think silence equals disapproval, so they fill it. They overshare. They repeat themselves. They apologize for clarity. But what they're really doing is handing away their power in exchange for approval they never needed to begin with. And the moment someone sees you doing that, explaining yourself over and over, they realize you don't trust your own authority. When you walk into a room and stay grounded, people feel it. When you make a decision and stand behind it without a speech, people notice. Silence isn't emptiness. Silence is presence. And the people who master it are the ones who understand this attention is currency. And if you give yours away freely, no one values it. You become background noise. But when you speak with intention, when you pause before you respond, when you allow people to sit in the discomfort of not having all the answers from you, you teach them that your words carry weight. Most people rush to fill silence because they're afraid of how they'll be perceived. But perception is shaped by posture, not by panic. If someone challenges you and you instantly defend, explain, or prove, they know they've touched a nerve. They know you're still trying to earn your place. But if someone questions your decision and you calmly say, "This is what I've chosen," and leave it there, you don't give them an opening to control the frame. You keep ownership of the narrative, and they feel that. They respect it. Silence is also a test. When you stop talking, people reveal themselves. They fill the gap with their own assumptions, and that's where the truth lies. You get to observe how comfortable they are when they don't have control. Do they push harder? Do they try to provoke you? Do they turn manipulative or defensive? Silence shines a spotlight on their insecurities while protecting yours. It's a filter, and the longer you can sit in it, the more you learn about the room you're in and the people you're dealing with. You don't need to prove you're right. You don't need to explain your every move. The more you explain, the less they listen. Why? Because when you try to be too clear, too agreeable, too accommodating, you become predictable, familiar, easy to decode. And the human brain doesn't prioritize what it doesn't have to work to understand. If you want people to pay attention, don't just speak, make them lean in. Make them curious. Let your silence draw the line they can't cross without effort. Because once they know they have to work to earn your clarity, your value rises. Watch how differently people treat you when you pause before you answer. When you don't laugh just to ease their tension. When you look them in the eye, but don't rush to rescue them from discomfort. It's not rudeness, it's control. Control of your presence. Control of your energy. Control of the moment. You're not being difficult. You're being deliberate, and that difference creates tension. Not hostility, but gravity. People are drawn to those who don't reveal everything right away. People prioritize what they can't predict. In a world where everyone's talking to be liked, be the one who listens to understand. In a world where everyone is performing, be the one who pauses. When someone pushes for a reaction, don't give it. When they bait you with emotion, stay steady. When they demand an explanation, offer a calm truth and let it breathe. This doesn't mean be silent all the time. It means be intentional. Say what needs to be said, then stop. Let your silence do what your voice no longer has to. There's strength in restraint. There's clarity in stillness. You don't need to be the loudest person in the room to be the most respected. You just need to be the one who doesn't flinch. The one who doesn't explain every boundary, every move, every decision. Because when you stop over-explaining, you start commanding attention instead of chasing it. And the people who know power, they feel that shift. They may not say it, but they respect it. They remember it. And they respond to it. There's a difference between seeing everything and letting everything affect you. If you want to be someone who commands respect, you need to stop absorbing what was never yours to carry. You need to stop reacting to every glance, every tone, every shift in someone else's energy. Observing doesn't mean absorbing. You can notice without responding. You can hear without agreeing. You can feel without reacting. That's the line that separates people who are easily shaken from those who walk into a room and hold ground no matter what's happening around them. People who lack emotional boundaries confuse other people's moods with their own identity. They walk into a room and instantly shrink if someone's energy is off. They carry other people's anxiety like it belongs to them. They let someone else's opinion dictate their value. And they don't even realize it's happening, because they've never been taught the discipline of detachment. But emotional strength isn't found in how much you feel. It's found in what you choose to carry. You don't need to absorb the room to read it. You can stay present without losing yourself. When you walk into a space, pay attention, but don't react. Let people show you who they are through patterns, not just emotion. Someone's tone may sound off. That doesn't mean it's about you. Someone might give you a look. That doesn't mean it's an attack. Someone might not respond the way you hoped. That doesn't mean you lose your value. Emotional intelligence means you can decode what's happening without jumping to conclusions. You gather data, you observe, you analyze, but you don't internalize every shift as if your identity depends on it. You can't hold authority if you're constantly shaken by perception. If one side comment rattles your confidence, it means you're still attaching your worth to other people's behavior. That's a setup for failure, because people will project their pain on you. They will test your energy. They will poke at your boundaries to see if they hold. If every little jab, every whisper, every cold look knocks you off your center, you've already lost the room. But when you stay grounded, when you stay watching, when you stay unmoved, they start recalibrating their energy to match yours. Observation puts you in control. Absorption puts you on defense. When you absorb, you're constantly reacting. When you observe, you're choosing your response. One is survival, the other is strategy. One drains you, the other gives you clarity. When you step back and take inventory without getting emotionally hooked, you gain the upper hand. You can see patterns forming. You can sense power dynamics. You can feel where the tension is and still keep your posture. That's influence. That's leadership. That's command. You don't owe people a reaction just because they're emotional. Someone may be triggered by your boundaries. Let them be triggered. Someone may misunderstand your silence. Let them wonder. Someone may project their insecurities onto you. Let them. Just because someone throws an energy your way doesn't mean you have to catch it. You can let it pass. You can breathe. You can say nothing and still hold full presence in the moment. That kind of control builds trust. It tells the room, I'm not here to be pulled into chaos. I'm here to stand in true. Most people are energy sponges. They absorb every emotion, every insecurity, every projection. And then they wonder why they feel exhausted, reactive, and misunderstood. But the solution isn't to care less, it's to carry less. It's to learn how to feel without flinching, to care without collapsing, to show compassion without compromising your stability. That comes from knowing who you are, regardless of the room you're in. That comes from being so rooted in your own values that you can witness dysfunction and still choose to act from discipline. Being observant is not weakness. It's training. You don't speak just to fill space. You don't react just to be seen. You watch. You listen. You pick up the real story behind the surface tension. You catch the micro expressions, the passive aggression, the unspoken insecurities. But you don't mirror them. You stay neutral. And in that neutrality, you find advantage. Because while they're still trying to provoke you, you're already 3 steps ahead, making decisions, choosing responses. Maintaining your energy presence doesn't mean participation. You can be fully in the room and still not give anyone access to your inner world. You decide who gets to impact your state. You decide who gets close enough to shift your thinking. And if you find yourself absorbing negativity from every conversation, every glance, every subtle vibe, it means it's time to pull your energy back and reset the standard. People should work to earn your emotional availability. It's not something you hand out for free. The most commanding people in any room are not the loudest. They're the most emotionally steady. They see everything, but they don't flinch. They hear everything, but they don't chase down gossip or feedback. They feel the tension, but they don't feed it. They hold themselves with such discipline that others have no choice but to respond with respect. Because when you train yourself to observe without absorbing, you send a message that's loud without saying a word. Respect doesn't start with how others treat you. It starts with how you treat yourself. If you want people to prioritize you, see you, value your presence, you have to show them what that looks like by example. And it begins with how you walk, how you speak, how you sit in a room when no one's acknowledging you. Most people wait for someone to validate them before they believe they matter. But it doesn't work like that. The world mirrors your energy. It reflects the standard you set. You can't carry yourself like an afterthought and expect to be treated like a priority. You can't speak like you're unsure, stand like you're invisible, and move like you're apologizing for taking up space, and then wonder why people overlook you. Confidence is not about being loud. It's about being rooted. It's about how you look someone in the eye without blinking. How you say no without guilt. How you enter a space like you were meant to be there, not like you're asking permission to exist. People will treat you the way you teach them to. If you accept disrespect once, they'll test it again. If you explain your boundaries too much, they'll push past them. If you overextend yourself to be liked, they'll never truly respect you. Why? Because desperation repels value. When you chase approval, it signals that you don't believe you're worthy of it by default. And when you act like you're replaceable, people start to believe it. There's a difference between being kind and being available to anyone at any time. Keenness doesn't mean self-abandonment. You can have compassion and still hold your ground. You can be respectful without being submissive. And you can offer support without being used. People respect strength. Not arrogance, strength. Quiet, steady, disciplined strength that says, I know who I am. I don't need you to agree for it to be true. That kind of presence earns priority. Not because you begged for it, but because you moved in a way that demanded it without ever asking. You have to learn how to back yourself, especially when no one's clapping. Especially when people misunderstand your confidence as arrogance. Especially when your boundaries make others uncomfortable. Because they will. The moment you stop being easily accessible, some people will call you difficult. The moment you stop explaining every decision, they'll say you've changed. But the truth is, you're just no longer available for being disrespected by people who haven't earned access to you. People prioritize what they fear losing. That means if you're always available, always accommodating, always agreeable, you become background noise. People assume you'll always be there. They won't value your time because you haven't taught them that it's limited. They won't respect your space because you've never defended it. They won't elevate your place in their life because you haven't elevated it in your own. You teach people your worth through the standards you enforce. Not the words you speak, but the lines you draw and hold. It's not about playing games or manipulating anyone. It's about honoring your values so consistently that people who want to stay in your life understand what that requires. You don't beg for treatment. You model it. You don't ask to be prioritized. You embody someone who prioritizes themselves. That means showing up for your goals whether anyone watches or not. That means protecting your peace even if someone calls you cold. That means saying no without an explanation when something doesn't align with your values. You set the tone. Always. And that tone tells people everything. It tells them whether they can interrupt your boundaries, whether they can manipulate you with guilt, whether they can disappear for weeks and return like nothing happened, whether they can use you when they're down and ignore you when they're up, or whether they have to rise to meet you because you've already decided you will no longer lower your standards to meet anyone else's lack of character. If you don't respect your time, no one else will. If you don't protect your peace, people will keep invading it. If you don't speak like your voice matters, people will talk over you. It's not personal. It's psychological. People respond to what you project. You want to be treated like a priority. Start treating yourself like one. Start investing in your growth. Start walking into rooms like you belong. Start saying no to anything that diminishes your dignity. Not because you want to look strong, but because you are strong. The people who carry themselves with presence, with grounded energy, with unapologetic clarity, they don't need to ask for respect. They walk in and people feel it. And when they speak, people pause. When they move, people watch. Not because they're trying to be seen, but because they've already seen themselves. That's the difference between waiting to be chosen and deciding that you're already worth choosing. You don't owe everyone your full access. And the moment you make yourself too easy to understand, too quick to explain, too available for interpretation, people stop working for your attention. Human psychology is simple. People value what they earn. They don't respect what is handed to them too easily. When something is always available, it loses its weight. It becomes background. It becomes default. And you were never meant to be background to your own life. You've been conditioned to think clarity equals closeness. That the more you explain yourself, the more people will understand you. That if you break yourself down into pieces, simplify your depth, and lay it all on the table, you'll finally be seen. But that's not how respect is built. Respect isn't built by being easy to access. It's built by being selective with who gets access and how deep they get to go. It's not about being mysterious. It's about being intentional. People should have to earn the right to understand you. When you walk into a room and everyone knows exactly what you think, what you feel, what you'll do, that's not transparency, that's exposure. And the more predictable you are, the easier it becomes to manipulate you. If they know you'll always explain, always clarify, always follow up, always soften your words, they know they can push the line and you'll fold. That's how you lose your edge. That's how you go from commanding attention to being taken for granted. The people who hold presence in a room are not always the ones who talk the most. They're the ones who make people wonder. Not confused, curious. Not cold, collected. They don't make themselves smaller to make others comfortable. They don't explain every boundary just to avoid being misunderstood. They speak with intention. They give just enough to lead, not to be consumed. And that makes people pay closer attention. It makes people lean in. It makes people try to earn more of their insight, their time, their presence. You don't have to play games to hold value. But you do have to stop handing yourself away so easily. When you're always the first to respond, the first to call back, the first to explain, people start to assume they own pieces of you, that they're entitled to your thoughts, that your emotions belong to the room. And then, when you try to pull back or protect your peace, they call you distant or difficult. Not because you are, but because they become addicted to unearned access. There is strength in being clear, and there is strategy in being brief. Speak with purpose. Move with confidence. Let your silence fill the gaps. Not everyone needs to know what you're thinking. Not everyone needs to know where you're going. Not everyone deserves the roadmap to your mind. If they want that kind of access, let them earn it through consistency, respect, and real connection. Not just curiosity or convenience. Stop giving your vulnerability to people who haven't shown emotional safety. Stop over-explaining to people who have already made up their minds. Stop trying to prove yourself to people who are only listening for weakness. Because every time you explain your soul to someone who hasn't earned your truth, you're handing over something sacred. You're offering up the most valuable part of yourself to people who see you as ordinary. That's not humility. That's self-betrayal. You can be kind and still keep your mystery. You can be compassionate and still require effort. You can be open-hearted without being wide open. It's not your job to make others comfortable by giving away everything that makes you powerful. It's your job to protect your clarity, to preserve your depth, to guard your peace, and to make people show up with effort if they want to stay in your life with priority. When you are always easy to reach, people stop reaching. When you are always giving, people stop appreciating. And when you always explain, people stop listening. Let them do some of the work. Let them ask deeper questions. Let them sit in the tension of not knowing. Let them earn the right to know what moves you, what shakes you, what matters to you. Because if you want to be valued, you must require effort. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because you're no longer willing to give away what's rare like it's common. The people who get full access to you should be the ones who show up consistently. The ones who respect your boundaries even when no one's watching. The ones who listen without needing to fix. The ones who prove they can handle your power without trying to shrink it. Everyone else, let them watch. Let them guess. Let them earn their way in. Because if you want to be a priority, you have to stop being a convenience. And when you do, you'll notice something. People start showing up differently. You don't need to raise your voice to raise your value. Power isn't in volume. Power is in precision. Power is in presence. The people who command attention without saying much understand something most people miss. Stillness is louder than noise. Silence held with purpose speaks louder than shouting. Eye contact, steady and unshaken, says more than any speech. When you train yourself to be calm in the face of chaos, the world starts to adjust to you. Most people think control looks like dominance, like taking over a room or speaking first. But real control isn't loud. It doesn't need to announce itself. It sits still. It speaks slow. It watches. And when it speaks, it doesn't compete. It cuts through. When you use stillness and eye contact deliberately, you're signaling something ancient, primal, and unmissable. I don't need your validation to know who I am in high-pressure rooms. The person who panics first loses their leverage. The person who overreacts, who breaks eye contact, who fidgets to fill the silence, they're not seen as confident, they're seen as vulnerable. Not emotionally open, but exposed. Because emotional control is a language of strength, and people subconsciously respond to that language. The steadier you are, the more they adjust. The quieter your confidence, the more they watch what you do next. This doesn't mean suppress your emotions. It means command them. It means train yourself to use your energy with intention. Most people pour it everywhere, trying to be liked, trying to be right, trying to stay safe. They fill the air with nervous words, fake laughs, endless explanations. But power doesn't perform, it holds, it breathes. It creates a vacuum that makes people lean in instead of tuning out. Eye contact is one of the most direct psychological tools you have. When you meet someone's eyes calmly, especially when they're expecting hesitation, you change the tone of the entire interaction. You don't need to stare them down or make it aggressive. You just hold it. Natural, grounded, firm. Not to intimidate, but to signal presence. That you're not shaken, that you're not distracted, that you're not performing for approval, but owning the space you're in. You become magnetic when you stop rushing. Rushing to prove, rushing to please, rushing to fill silence. Learn to be comfortable in pauses. Let your words land. Let people sit in the weight of your presence before you move to the next sentence. When you're still, and your energy is calm but certain, people instinctively recognize the strength it takes to stay that grounded. They feel it. And whether they admit it or not, they respect it. Think about the last time someone made you stop and pay attention. Not because they were loud, but because they were deliberate. Their calm unnerved the room. Their lack of reactivity broke the cycle. Their focus made everything else feel chaotic by comparison. That's the effect of trained stillness. That's the kind of energy that makes you a priority. Because in a world addicted to noise, the one who speaks less but says more always stands out. You don't need to dominate a room to own it. You need to regulate your energy better than anyone else in it. That means controlling your breathing when things get tense. That means softening your body language without folding. That means speaking slower when others are speeding up. These are tactical moves, not emotional reactions. And they create authority without aggression. Most people overcompensate when they're insecure. They talk too much, they react too fast, they avoid eye contact or overuse it. But the ones who've done the inner work, they stay steady. They speak with rhythm. They know when to speak and when to wait. And they understand that respect doesn't come from force. It comes from clarity, from control, from consistency. That's what stillness communicates. Not passivity, but precision. There's a different level of respect that shows up when you master this. People don't talk over you. They don't test you the same way. They think twice before interrupting. Because something about your presence tells them this person knows who they are. And whether they agree with you or not, they adjust to your pace. They try to match your calm. And if they can't, they reveal their own chaos without you having to say a word. This is how you change the dynamic without confrontation. No need to argue. No need to explain yourself 100 times. Just stand still. Just meet their eyes. Just breathe and stay rooted. You don't have to fight for power when you embody it. You don't have to demand attention when your presence carries weight. And once you've practiced this enough, you'll notice how much less you need to say to get the impact you want. You can give someone your time, your energy, your support. But none of it will mean anything if it's not matched with respect. And if you don't build the habit of rewarding people based on how they treat you, not just how close they are to you, you'll always find yourself drained, disappointed, and devalued. Access is not a gift. It's a reflection of how someone shows up for you. And until you start linking respect to access, you'll keep giving to people who see your presence as a convenience, not a privilege. Most people make the mistake of reversing the formula. They give full access, deep loyalty, and emotional vulnerability up front, hoping that it will buy them respect. But respect doesn't work that way. It's not earned by overextending. It's earned by how well you uphold your standards when it's inconvenient. People watch what you tolerate. They test your boundaries. They calculate how far they can push. And if you keep allowing disrespect just to avoid tension, you're sending the loudest signal of all. I don't protect myself. If you want to be a priority in someone's life, you can't just hand over your value and hope they see it. You have to build a filter. You have to pay attention to the patterns. You have to start treating your energy like it's worth something, because it is. Someone who respects you will not make you beg for time. They will not show up only when it's easy. They will not disappear when you need them most and reappear when it suits them. Respect shows up in consistency, not in apologies. In presence, not promises. The moment someone shows you who they are, believe it, and respond accordingly. You don't need to cut everyone off. You don't need to make dramatic exits. You just shift access. You become less available. You stop showing up with both hands open when they show up empty. You stop hoping they'll become someone they've never consistently been. And you stop rewarding potential instead of behavior. Because potential is dangerous when it keeps you stuck in a cycle of being treated like a backup plan. Your boundaries are not punishments. They are guidelines for self-respect. They tell people what you will and will not allow. They don't need to be loud. They don't need to be emotional. They just need to be consistent. You don't need to scream, "Respect me." You just need to stop giving your best to people who only show up when it benefits them. If someone only values you when they need something, stop answering every time they call. If someone keeps crossing the line, stop redrawing it for them. Teach them that your presence is earned, and this isn't about revenge. It's not about ego. It's about reclaiming your energy from people who drain it. About remembering that your loyalty should never be louder than their effort. It's easy to confuse emotional connection with emotional safety. Just because you feel close to someone doesn't mean they deserve everything you have to give. You've got to start aligning your access with your standards, with your peace, with your non-negotiables. Because people who are serious about you will rise to meet those terms without being told twice. Don't give access based on history. Don't give access based on guilt. Don't give access because you're afraid of being seen as difficult. You're not difficult for wanting to be treated with dignity. You're not cold for stepping back from inconsistent people. You're not arrogant for realizing your value and adjusting the way you allow others to engage with you. That's not cruelty, that's clarity. And clarity protects you from emotional confusion and exhaustion. You've got to remember that not everyone deserves the same level of you. Some people can only meet you at surface level, and that's where they should stay. Some people are good with you in public but disappear in private. Keep them there. Some people love what you give but won't pour into you the same. Recognize that and adjust. You're not here to convince people to see your value. You're here to reflect it back at them with your standards. And when those standards are enforced, they either rise or they exit. The people who value you will not be offended by your boundaries. The people who want to stay will not argue with the fact that you expect respect. If they push back, it's because they benefited from your lack of boundaries. And once that access gets cut, they'll test you. They'll poke. They'll act surprised. They'll guilt trip you. Let them. Let them feel what it's like to lose access they once took for granted. And let that discomfort teach them something. Not because you wanted to hurt them, but because you finally decided to stop hurting yourself. So start watching how people show up when they're not getting everything they want. Start watching how they act when you say no. Start watching how they respond when you draw the line. That's where their respect shows up. Not in how loud they praise you, but in how well they honor your boundaries in silence. And that's what determines who gets access to your life. Not the words they say, but the weight they carry when you're no longer giving yourself away for free.